Hi everyone, Hirsch Saha here, reporting from Auckland. Today is the 27th of May 2024. And yes, that age old question, what to do when you finish school? And usually, I guess, the choices, if you like, are obvious. When you finish school, you can either go to university, you can go get a job, can start a business, do an OE, perhaps have a gap year, take some time off, discover yourself, get a feel of things, just take some time off, just relax, enjoy, or really any combination of those things. And I think what we need to stress and what we need to remember is that there really is no right or wrong answer. It might appear that the best thing to do is to simply, go to university, get a head start, continue your education, or at least get into work, or something like that. But again, it really is different for everyone. It all comes down to what you really want out of life, And again, no one size fits all. A little bit like in that recent talk video about how I define success as basically being, your ultimate goal of, what you want to achieve in life, what you want to do in your life, whatever that is, and then achieving it. That's what success is. And of course, the same thing applies here. And I can certainly relate to it because I can provide my own story of basically being pushed to go to university and study what is a booming subject, as if everything else or anything else is not even a choice. And when I finished school, this was at the end of 2001, and then I started university the following year, 2002. And just as natural as night follows day, I thought that's just what you do because that's basically what I was pushed to do. That's what I was basically brainwashed to do, if you like. And really, while I did pretty well at university and I did get ahead in life, it really wasn't what I wanted. It really wasn't going straight to university, and also what I studied. Like I said, I was basically pushed to do what's a booming industry. And at the time, when I started university at the beginning of 2002, at the time, booming industries were basically, accounting, finance, law, or IT. And at the time, what I really wanted to do, what I really had a passion for, was real estate, which is what I work in at the moment, at least part time. And back then, it has always been a passion of mine, and certainly going back, back to that time. And this might even sound like a joke, but I remember it so well. The end of 2001, especially here in New Zealand. It wasn't really a good time, economically speaking, or generally in any way. I mean, we just had September 11th a few months before. There was the so-called new war on terror, America's war on terror. They talked about possibly other buildings being taken down, and perhaps they weren't, but at the time they were worried about it. They talked about petrol prices skyrocketing. Thank God they did it. They didn't, but at the time people were worried about it. Here in New Zealand, our dollar was worth an embarrassing US 41 cents. In our economy, we just had a massive budget deficit. Things really weren't looking that great. It was, in some ways, a bit like a recession. And people were worried, people really were worried after such a peaceful decade that the 90s was, well, at least after the early 90s when the Gulf War finished, we'd had basically a good, 9 or 10 years of peace and quiet, and then suddenly September 11th and everything that came with it. So it really wasn't a good time. And I remember thinking that, I really like real estate, but, I'm just 17, just turned 17. I don't have much knowledge in, the field of real estate. I have absolutely no experience in it. But maybe, I can start somewhere, perhaps become a real estate agent. And that's, of course, would have been the ideal thing to have done. And I know, of course, hindsight is 2020, but that's what I wish I did do. And back in those days, believe it or not, here in New Zealand, all you needed for to become a residential real estate agent or salesperson was a simple 2 week polytechnic course, just 2 weeks, and that was it. You didn't have to do any further training. After you had done the 2 weeks after you'd done that 2 week polytech course, and provided you passed, and it wasn't very hard to pass, you had your salesperson's certificate, your license, and you could become, a residential real estate salesperson and be entitled to uncapped earnings because you worked on commission. So therefore, theoretically, uncapped commissions or uncapped earnings. And really is something because today it's a bit different. The industry is much more competitive. There is a lot of regulation. Back in those days, it was very deregulated. Today, it is probably too regulated in terms of residential real estate salespeople. They have to do a 3-month course, and even after that, they have to do ongoing training. And for the first 6 months of work, they can't earn any money. It's seen as a learning curve. So it's definitely much, much, much harder today. But back in those days, it was you know a bit easier. And I thought maybe that's what I should do. And I remember thinking, and this might sound like a bit of a joke. Some of you might already be laughing, but I remember thinking to myself, the 90s in New Zealand, in terms of the property market, the real estate market, the residential real estate market, the 90s was pretty flat. I don't know what's going to happen with the 2000s, or the coming years. That'll probably be flat as well if the past 10 years are anything to go by. And of course, little did anyone know that the biggest boom of all time, here in New Zealand at least, the biggest property boom of all time was just around the corner. And that lasted from the beginning of 2002 to the middle of 2007. And what happened is, unfortunately, I didn't quite heed that. I just did what I thought I should do, what I was basically forced to do. And I went to university. I studied accounting and I hated it. I'm not saying that going to university is wrong. I'm not saying that studying accounting is wrong. Again, there's no one size that fits all. Like I'm saying, when you finish school, whether you should go to university, get a job, start a business, go on OE, have a gap year, get married, or whatever, or even do a combination of those things that suits you. It just depends on the individual and what he or she really wants out of life, what he and she enjoys, what their passion is. There is really no right or wrong answer. Just because you never go to university doesn't mean you're a failure in any way, shape, or form, and vice versa. Just because you do go to university and you even work your way up to getting a PhD doesn't mean that you're a huge success unless that's what you truly want and you use it in the right way, right? Um, but, like with my story, I studied accounting. I remember first going into the 3-year degree, the Bachelor of Commerce and Administration, basically the commerce degree with accounting as my major, and that would have taken 3 years, being 2002, 2003, and 2004. But I remember hearing only about a year and a half into the degree that, today every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a degree. It's about making your degree powerful. So I took on 2 more majors, commercial law and finance. So my degree became 4 years. It would go from 2002, not to 2004, being those 3 years, but up to 2005. And then, even after that, because I managed to get myself into it, I did honors in accounting postgraduate, which became a 5th year or 2006. So in all, I did a Bachelor of Commerce and Administration, a commerce degree, and I studied in Wellington, New Zealand, with 3 majors: accounting, commercial law, and finance, and then on top of that, postgraduate honors in accounting. So it became 5 years in total, 2002 to 2006. And oh my God, the last year honors in accounting, geez, how much I just hated that. And I still think about just some of the weird things I learned there, some of the weird things we did, which basically had even nothing to do with accounting, and I'll go into that in another talk video coming up. But and there'll be a talk video about extreme academics, you'll see. But it just wasn't what I wanted to do, and I really stuck it through to the end. I really put my head down. I really slogged my way through it. I worked like a dog, and I got there in the very end. I got my degree, BCA, with 3 majors and honors in accounting, and I'd done pretty well. But it just really wasn't what I wanted. And I remember towards the end of it, in my last year, I just decided, no, what I wanted to do was real estate. That's what I wanted to do. And and as you can expect, basically in 2001 when I finished school, and towards the beginning of 2002 when I was thinking about what to do and I had real estate in mind, people were saying, real estate, really? I mean, the market's not going anywhere. It's been flat for 10 years. Why do you want to go into that? And then compared to, say, in my last year of study, 2006, when I was thinking about real estate one more time, you can imagine people saying, they're like, oh, yes, no, definitely go into real estate. The market is booming. And it was. from the beginning of 2002 to the middle of 2007, it was, like I said, the biggest property boom of all time, certainly here in New Zealand and certainly in many other countries actually in the Western world. And they looked at it. And here in New Zealand, it was because of a number of things. One was September 11th. After September 11th, New Zealand and Australia were seen as the safest countries on earth, at least definitely some of the safest. So more people came here. And then there were other things. People wanted to go to university here, so they started coming here for that reason. People, loved the beauty of New Zealand, so they came for that reason. And of course, banks were throwing money at people, probably too much, and they were just loaning, and it was all they were buying based on perceived values going up and up and up and up. And of course, they can't just keep going up forever, can they? It'll reach a point, where it's just no longer sustainable, and that's of course what happened. So people, mortgaged themselves to the hill or to the hilt, whatever the right word is there, and they just, bought on the perception that values would keep going up and up and up. And reading all those, popular financial books that came out at the time, and people thinking that they could get rich quick off real estate, and then of course, after the massive boom came the bust. In here in New Zealand, it started in October 2007 with very careless interest rate hikes in a desperate attempt to bring down the housing market, which was done by the Reserve Bank at the time, and those interest rate hikes took effect in early 2008. So basically, what happened is the property market crashed, and then in mid 2008, it crashed again with the world recession, the global financial crisis, the credit crunch. The property market, what it should only do about once every 15 years, crash. It did twice in just 6 months. And with me coming back to my story, after studying accounting and commercial law and finance, and then doing honors in accounting, the degree with 3 majors in honors in accounting, doing that for 5 years, towards the end of it, in 2006, I decided I actually wanted to go into real estate. So at the end of 2006, I did my 2-week Polytech course, and I finished that in early 2007. And then after a bit of deliberating and thinking about what jobs to do, mid 2007, I landed a job in a real estate office, and also my first proper full-time job as a residential real estate agent. And I did pretty well in the first sort of 6-7 months, being the second half of 2007. But then, of course, things took a turn for the worse when the market collapsed after those interest rate hikes of October 2007 that took effect in early 2008. And then, of course, in mid 2008 with the global financial crisis, and it got really bad. I remember basically in the first half of 2008, I made no sales whatsoever and therefore no money. And it was just horrible, working like a dog, working 6 to 7 days a week, for almost nothing. And it was embarrassing too, but I stuck with it because I enjoyed being my own boss. I enjoyed the industry. I enjoyed the job and the nature of it. And that's what I wanted to do. But eventually it just got to a point where I just sort of had to, call it quits and move on. And this actually happened much later. This actually happened towards the end of 2010. So even from the beginning of 2008, when things took a turn for the worse, I continued working in real estate from then to basically towards the end of 2010, basically another 2 and 3/4 years, I continued working, even though it was very tough. And I did make sales here and there. And I also partnered with another real estate agent, and first becoming his assistant, but then becoming his business partner. And we moved also to a different real estate company, a better real estate company as well. But it just still didn't quite work, and I had a bit of a wake up call towards the end of 2010, and then I finally moved on. But even in that time, I really did as much as I could. I worked really hard, and I even took on the ongoing training as you had to do, and I even achieved my national certificate in residential real estate in 2010, which was another step up from the normal, salesperson certificate. So, just at the end of the day, to sum it up, how I wish I had just gone straight into real estate at the very beginning. In 2002, after I'd finished school, I would have done my 2-week Polytech course. I would have gone into real estate. I would have, basically rode the wave of the boom. Things would have been so much easier for me. But even having said that, knowing me, I would have, really established myself. So when things did get hard, I would have been fully established and much, much stronger. And having all those years experience in real estate rather than just the 6 months that I had, because I ended up starting much later after doing the 5-year degree. And I do regret it even to this day, because I think I'd be far ahead in life in many ways had I done that. But it really made me realize, that, when it coming back to the topic of this talk video, when you finish school, really there is no right or wrong answer. Don't just listen to what everyone else is saying. Or I would actually, the advice I'd give you is, hear more than one person's opinion on it. I mean, you've just heard my story, hear a few other people's stories, and then, make a decision for yourself. But remembering that it really is about you. There is no one size that fits all. When you finish school, whether you should get a job or start a business or go on an OE or have a gap year or go to university or polytech or whatever, learn a trade, it really does depend on you, what you want, what you want to achieve in life, where what you see yourself as doing, where you see yourself as going, and what your ultimate aim or goal is. That's what it really comes down to. There really is no right or wrong answer. You don't have to go to university or anything like that. Just, the world is your oyster. Do what you are passionate about, what you love, what you really see yourself as. That's what you should follow. That's what you should do. Move forward, keep moving forward, keep learning, and, hopefully never have any regrets, you know, certainly is, a good recipe for living your life, isn't it? So, on that note, I think that's a good time to end. Hey, keep that in mind.